Discovering a small cardboard box dumped on the side of a road. You look inside and find the body of a young child, a boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old, clean, well-groomed, carefully wrapped in a blanket, but no one knows who he is. Picture this. For 65 years, investigators searched for his identity. They followed thousands of leads. They interviewed countless people. They created sketches, took fingerprints, examined every detail. But no one came forward. No one reported a missing child matching his description. No family ever claimed him. He became known as America's unknown child. The boy in the box, a mystery that haunted Philadelphia for over 6 decades. This is what happened on February 25, 1957, when a college student was checking animal traps in Fox Chase, a neighborhood in northeast Philadelphia. He noticed a large cardboard box lying in the woods near Susquehanna Road. The box was partially hidden under some brush. It looked abandoned, out of place. He walked closer. The box had originally contained a baby bassinet, according to the label, JCPenney brand. He lifted the flap and looked inside. What he saw would haunt him for the rest of his life. The body of a small boy, naked, wrapped in a plaid blanket. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. The student ran to call police. When officers arrived and examined the scene, they found something even more disturbing. This wasn't a case of abandonment or accident. This was murder. He was between 4 and 6 years old. He weighed about 30 pounds. He was 3 feet tall. His hair had been recently cut, crudely and unevenly, like someone had tried to disguise his appearance. His body showed signs of severe abuse. Bruises covered his arms, legs, and torso, some old, some new. He'd been beaten repeatedly over a long period of time. The medical examiner determined he'd been dead for several days to a few weeks before being found. Cause of death: blunt force trauma to the head. He'd been beaten to death. But there were strange details that made the case even more mysterious. Despite the abuse, the boy was remarkably clean. His fingernails were trimmed. His body had been recently bathed. Someone had taken care of his appearance before disposing of him. His hair had been cut shortly before or after death. Strands of freshly cut hair were found on his body. Why would someone cut his hair? Inside the box with him was the plaid blanket he was wrapped in. The blanket was later traced to a specific type sold in the Philadelphia area. But thousands of these blankets existed. It was impossible to trace to a specific buyer. The box itself was a JCPenney bassinet container. These were common, sold at stores across the country. Police searched the area thoroughly. No clothes were found, no identification, no personal items, nothing that could tell them who this child was. Philadelphia police launched one of the largest missing persons investigations in American history. They were determined to identify this boy and find his killer. Detectives took fingerprints. They photographed the body from every angle. They created detailed sketches of his face. An artist even created a bust sculpture of what the boy looked like in life. They distributed 400,000 flyers throughout Philadelphia and surrounding areas. The flyers showed the boy's photograph and description. They were posted in police stations, post offices, schools, churches, and businesses. Surely someone would recognize him. Surely someone was missing this child. But no one came forward. Police checked every missing children report filed in Pennsylvania in the previous year. Nothing matched. They expanded the search to neighboring states: New Jersey, Delaware, New York, Maryland. Still nothing. They contacted orphanages, foster care agencies, and children's homes. Had anyone recently lost track of a boy matching this description? No. They interviewed thousands of people, door-to-door canvassing in the Fox Chase neighborhood. Did anyone see anything suspicious? Did anyone notice a car near the woods? Did anyone hear anything unusual? A few leads emerged, but all went nowhere. The case went cold. But police never gave up. They kept the file active. They followed every tip that came in, even decades later. The boy was buried in a potter's field, a cemetery for the unidentified and unclaimed. His gravestone read, "Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy." decades, several theories emerged about who the boy in the box was and what happened to him. Theory 1. The foster home theory. In 1960, a woman came forward claiming she knew the boy's identity. She said he was the child of a woman who had purchased him from his birth parents. The woman kept him locked in the basement, abusing him for years. When he died from the abuse, she disposed of the body. This witness led police to a specific house. The details matched. There was even a bassinet in the basement, but investigators could never prove the story. The woman refused to cooperate. No charges were ever filed. Theory 2. The traveling carnival theory. Some investigators believe the boy might have been part of a traveling carnival or circus. This would explain why no one locally reported him missing. His family might have been transient, moving from city to city. Theory 3. The runaway parents theory. Perhaps the boy's parents were themselves runaways or criminals hiding from the law. They couldn't report their child missing without exposing themselves. Theory 4. The illegal adoption theory. In the 1950s, illegal adoptions were common. Perhaps this boy was part of an underground adoption that went wrong. When he died from abuse, his adoptive parents panicked and disposed of the body rather than face prosecution. None of these theories were ever proven. The case remained unsolved for 65 years. 65 years, the boy in the box remained unidentified. His case became one of America's most famous cold cases. Documentaries were made, books were written. Amateur detectives studied every detail. But in 2022, everything changed. The Philadelphia Police Department announced they had finally identified the boy using advanced DNA technology and genetic genealogy, the same techniques used to catch the Golden State Killer and other cold case criminals. His name was Joseph Augustus Zarelli. He was 4 years old when he died. He was born on January 13, 1953. He died sometime in late February 1957, shortly before his body was discovered. Joseph lived in the West Philadelphia area with his parents and siblings. His family was extremely poor. They lived in poverty. Joseph was abused and neglected. When he died from the abuse, his family disposed of his body rather than report his death. They never reported him missing. They simply acted as if he'd never existed. For 65 years, no family member came forward. No one acknowledged him. No one claimed him. He was erased from their lives. The identification was made through DNA samples from Joseph's body compared against genetic genealogy databases. Investigators built a family tree and eventually identified Joseph's living relatives. But here's the tragedy. By 2022, everyone who might have been responsible for Joseph's death was already deceased. His parents, his older siblings, all gone. No one would ever face justice for what happened to Joseph Augustus Zarelli. The story revealed the dark reality of extreme poverty in 1950s America. His family lived in desperate circumstances, multiple children, not enough food, not enough money, not enough care. Joseph was one of several siblings. Some accounts suggest there were 6 or 7 children in the family. They lived in cramped conditions. The parents struggled to provide basic necessities. Child abuse and neglect were common but rarely reported in that era. There were fewer social services, less government intervention. Families like Joseph's fell through the cracks. When Joseph died, his family made a terrible choice. Rather than face questions, rather than risk having their other children taken away, rather than face potential criminal charges, they disposed of his body and pretended he never existed. They cut his hair to make him harder to identify. They cleaned his body. They wrapped him carefully in a blanket. They placed him in a box and left him where someone would find him. Then they went on with their lives. They never spoke of him. They never acknowledged his existence. They let him become the unknown child. For 65 years, Joseph had no name, no family, no one to mourn him. He was buried alone in an unmarked grave, visited only by strangers and cold case investigators who refused to forget him. In December 2022, Philadelphia police held a press conference. They announced Joseph's identity to the world. Finally, after 65 years, America's unknown child had a name. The medical examiner's office issued a corrected death certificate. No longer unknown white male. Now, Joseph Augustus Zarelli. A new headstone was placed at his grave. It reads, Joseph Augustus Zarelli. Zarelli, the boy in the box, born January 13, 1953, died February 1957, known to God and finally to man. The case technically remains open. Though investigators know who Joseph was, they cannot definitively prove who killed him. All the likely suspects are deceased. DNA evidence and genetic genealogy solved the identity mystery, but it couldn't bring justice. It couldn't punish the guilty. It couldn't undo 65 years of anonymity. Joseph's story raised difficult questions. How many other children suffer in silence? How many families hide abuse rather than seek help? How many tragedies go unreported because of poverty, shame, and fear? The boy in the box case became a symbol, a reminder that vulnerable children need protection, that poverty and desperation can lead to unthinkable choices, that some mysteries, even when solved, leave us with more questions than answers. Joseph Augustus Zarelli is finally known. His name is spoken. His story is told. He is no longer just the boy in the box, but his case reminds us of uncomfortable truths. In 1957, a 4-year-old child was beaten to death, and no one reported him missing. Not his family, not his neighbors, not his community. For 65 years, hundreds of investigators worked to identify him. They never stopped trying. They never forgot him, even when everyone else did. The detectives who worked Joseph's case, many of whom are now deceased themselves, would be relieved to know he finally has a name. They spent careers trying to give him back his identity. Joseph's case changed how missing children are investigated. It influenced the development of missing children databases. It showed the importance of DNA technology in cold cases. His story has been featured in countless documentaries, podcasts, and news stories. Not because it's sensational, but because it's heartbreaking. A child who was invisible in life became unforgettable in death. What happened to Joseph Augustus Zarelli was a tragedy. The abuse, the murder, the disposal, the 65 years of anonymity, all of it. But in the end, investigators kept their promise. They gave him back his name. They told his story. They made sure he would never be forgotten again. Rest in peace, Joseph. You are finally home.